Hello and welcome to our first midweek episode where we're going to talk about the furthest east Canadian team, which we have confirmed with a map, is Montreal. Where we're going to go from east to west and talk about the Canadian team's prospects, but who better to start with than the team called Les Canadiens, so the Montreal Canadiens. I'm personally looking at the hockeywriters.com, and they've ranked all 32 farm systems, and Montreal is ranked 10th. As the 10th best prospect pool, as according to them.
And isn't it first out of the Canadian teams?
No, I think
Ottawa
and Montreal or Vancouver have higher
okay.
prospects than them, but they're pretty good. Like 10th, top 10 in the league.
Top 10 in the league is pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. So, looking at them, actually, of the 7 Canadian teams, I think 5 were in the top 15. Edmonton is 15th, and then you have Winnipeg, Ottawa, Vancouver, Montreal. Calgary's in the 20s, and then Toronto's like 17th or something. But
Calgary's
that's according to the hockey writers. Anywho, Montreal is, according to hockey writers, their top prospects. I mean, we all know Cole Caufield. Cole Caufield is one of the top prospects in the league, let alone just in the Montreal Canadiens organization.
Unfortunately, didn't he just...
He just got sent down. Yeah, so it's even better. We can even talk about him even more. He took off the... Canadiens forward off his social media profiles, hey?
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess because now he's in Laval, but...
No. He didn't have a good start to the season.
No.
I don't think it's just his fault, but he did not have a good start to the season.
Just 1 point in 10 games. So.
Yeah.
For being one of the top prospects.
Yeah,
and
a terrible start.
Projected to be a Calder, at least a Calder nominee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not a good start. Not a good start.
And then they have Caden Gooly, who was drafted in the first round of 2020, who's doing quite decent. I believe he's a captain for the Prince Albert Raiders in the WHL, and he's one of the favorites to become captain of Team Canada for the World Juniors.
Nice.
So he's a good player. He's a good prospect. He's projected to be a top pairing defenseman in the NHL once he eventually goes up. Yeah, and for a mid to late first round pick, Caden Gooly, not bad. Honestly, not bad upside for the kid as well.
So far during his season with Prince Albert, he does have 11 points in 9 games, so pretty good.
Yeah. So and then he's not necessarily going to be a guy that produces a ton of points, right? He's going to be more of a two-way defender kind of thing. So and that's the kind of prospect that Montreal needs, anyways. And then some other notable prospects are Jesse Ilonen. I guess is how you can pronounce his name. Caden Primo, who's projected to be a good goalie as well. He hasn't seen NHL minutes this year, I don't think, but it's because they wanted to develop him in Laval, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because he's in Laval right now.
Yeah, I believe so.
Because right now we have Jake Allen, Carey Price, and Montembeau, or whatever his name is. But Montembeau is really just a filler guy, a backup to have for a call-up, because I think Montreal does it right in the sense of they let their prospects develop in the minors, and then when they're ready and overripe in the minors, they bring them up to the NHL, which is, in my opinion, the way to do it. And then just a few more. They have Jaden Struble, Jordan Harris, Luke Tuck, Matthias Norlander, Jan Misak. Those are in the higher, the second tier of prospects. They only have one elite prospect, and that's Cole Caufield. He's, in my opinion, he will be one of the better scorers in the league. Something kind of like DeBrincat. DeBrincat is a really good scorer in this league. He's also a smaller forward, so I can see
that. Yeah.
Cole Caufield being more like him. I think he just needs more time to develop in the minors. Right now, he's just shown to not come out of the gates running. It also doesn't help that he doesn't have an elite center to play with. Centers help a lot for the wingers to produce points. And then, so Caden Primo, according to, again, all hockey writers, I'll put the link in the description below so you guys can all take a read at what we're talking about here.
List,
yeah. But Caden Primo is projected to be a pretty darn good goalie, too. In this second tier, they have a very, what's the word that I'm looking for? A pick that not everybody agreed upon, actually, that nobody wanted them to make in the first round of last year's draft, and that's Logan Mailloux.
Okay, yeah.
He was chart where he was accused of raping a young woman over in Europe, I think honestly, who cares where he did it, but he was accused of rape. And then the NHL didn't necessarily say, hey, don't draft him, but he removed his name from the draft. And the Montreal Canadiens just went ahead and picked him 31st overall last year in this last draft.
Yeah.
So he's also part of their prospect pool, which honestly, he took his name out because he obviously needed time to deal with personal stuff and develop as a human being. And I'm not, if what he did is true, then yeah, it's terrible. And I feel terribly for the young woman that he did this to. Yeah. But, I mean, Montreal's we want to give him a second chance. I'm all for second chances, but you got to give time between that and a second chance. So this was, probably not the best use of language, but this was a bit of a slap to the face to this young woman, in my opinion. But that's all. We're not. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to talk anymore.
We're not going to touch base too much on that, just because neither of us are very good or knowledgeable in that topic, and we don't want to insult it or belittle it or not bring enough awareness to it. So continuing on with the Montreal Canadiens prospects, they have a decent prospect pool. To be 10th in the league in prospects, I think and then they have the prospects in the right positions. I don't see them with a number one center coming up anytime soon, but that's already what Nick Suzuki is supposed to be. So, and they have a top defenseman that's going to come up hopefully soon. Alex Romanov just graduated from their farm system and is now a starter in the NHL, and I think Romanov will be a respectable top 4 defenseman. I don't think he's elite by any means, but I do think he is.
But he's still going to be very, very good.
Yeah. So I do think he will be a very good a good defenseman coming up. So I think they have the right pieces. I don't think they have enough of the elite prospects, but they have found some good pieces later on in the draft. Cole Caufield was not a top 5 pick. Montreal's consistently been decent, and with that being with him being decent consistently, they don't have the high-end picks like the Oilers did for a while, or the Arizona and Buffalo Sabres do all the freaking time, right? So they've had to really dig in on who their top prospects are going to be, I guess. And so yeah, it's interesting to note the kind of prospects they have. They have looking here, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. They have 10 tier 2 prospects, which are projected to be top 6 forwards or top 4D or starting goalie. So that's not bad.
That's not bad.
But it's projections. Of those 10, maybe 4 come out of it.
Yeah.
3 or 4, right? And they do have a pretty young team. I mean, they lost one of their better young players in Jesperi Kotkaniemi to our favorite offer sheet of all time. So they did lose that. The young, but they're starting to bring him up a little bit more. But I do think, in my opinion, their weakness is in the center position. It has been for so long. Ever since Saku Koivu left him, the center position has been by far their weakness, because they've had good wingers. When you think of the wingers that have come through the Montreal system, you have, again, coming up right now, Cole Caufield. You've had Max Pacioretty, Brendan Gallagher. You've had good defense because you've had PK Subban. They traded for Weber. Petrie came in
good,
with a trade for almost nothing with the Oilers. So they both traded and developed players that are good for them. So that's been really good for them and the fan base. And I think Marc Bergevin knows what he's doing. I mean, he did lead them to a cup final last year, and he drafted Carey Price with a pretty high draft pick, but still a few different teams missed out on him. But it's interesting. What do you think of the Montreal Canadiens farm system? Their prospect pools.
Like you said, they have pretty good tier 2 prospects. They do have quite a bit of centers in their farm system. So yeah, they will be developing their centers, which is good because you can get wingers from free agency easily. But developing centers is basically a must for teams. So, yeah, they have decent players. So, I would say I would agree with the list that we're looking at for Montreal being 10th out of all 32 teams.
Yeah, it's a decent prospect pool. It's better than I thought it would be, like looking more in depth into them for sure. But yeah, it's a decent prospect pool that has potential of getting there. They have an elite talent in Cole Caufield. It's just about how they develop them. And again, Montreal has been a good team at developing. Laval is a team that they really focus on team development. The fact that Primo was sent down, I think he played some games in the NHL last year, if I'm not mistaken. But it's because it's out of pure necessity. So they brought in a couple different names to make sure that Primo can stay down there and develop properly as he needs. And we'll see. I mean, they should get a pretty darn high pick this year. I don't know if it's like high enough to be Shane Wright, because could you imagine Shane Wright on the Montreal Canadiens? Like that would be huge for them. Huge
for Montreal, yeah.
Well, that's their first line center. It's like you find you have it what you need. But yeah, Shane Wright whoever gets Shane Wright this year is going to be unbelievably fortunate to get him, and there's definitely a lot of teams who need him, desperately need him. I think there's like 3 or 4 teams that everybody could use him, obviously. But it wouldn't be the end of the world if they didn't get him. There's like 3 or 4 of those teams. But we'll see how Montreal finishes the season. I think they might, I don't know if they're going to tank for Wright, not like the Coyotes
I was going to say, Coyotes is way ahead of them, so I don't think.
I mean, when was the last time that a team that actually finished dead last got the first over or won the lottery? Right? I like how NHL's done it, where, you get the best odds, but you still, have a 60% chance of not getting it because another team could get it. So I really like that. The way that they did that, I really, really, really like that. We'll see again how the season ends is gonna have a big deal, and it sucks that we're already talking about the draft for Montreal Canadiens. But as coming from an Oilers fan, we've talked about the draft a week into the season before because we just know how terrible our team is. So hopefully they can turn the season around. But worst case scenario, it looks like they'll be adding a pretty darn good prospect.
Yeah.
And I've always been the kind of guy that's get the best player available regardless of position. But I think they really need center help. They don't have an elite center available. They have Nick Suzuki is a good center. I don't really think he's a number 1 center in the NHL though. He's a really good number 2 center. I don't think he's a 1 center. It's similar to Nuge.
Like back in the day?
Yeah. I think Nuge is a really, really, really good center. I do not think he's a number 1 center, but I do think he's a good second pairing center when need be. Second line center, yeah. So I think that is how I view Suzuki the same way. So if they can find a way of drafting a center, or if they can find a way of drafting a really good, a top pairing defenseman to go with the Goalie kid that's coming out.
Yeah, just to help out because of Weber, and then Petry's getting older, and everyone else is getting older.
So that'll be wingers they have, you know what I mean? Yes. If centers can go to wing, a lot easier than wingers can go to center. So if you said they have a lot of centers already in the system, maybe some of them can move to be wingers, a bigger bodied winger, right? That's what this Tuck kid is projected to be. The younger brother of Alex Tuck, he's projected to be a top 6 power forward, which was a little shocking to some because in the NCAA level he's putting up some decent numbers from my understanding. So. Yeah, and then goalie, I think they're decently set. I don't think Caden Primo is a superstar caliber goalie. I don't think he's going to win Vezina after Vezina, but I do think he's a solid option in goal. I would take Caden Primo over Mikko Koskinen right now for sure. But yeah, one's an NHL, we'll call him an NHL goaltender, sure, and the other one is Mikko Koskinen. No, I'm just joking. The other one's Caden Primo, but. Yeah, their goalie.
No, I agree.
their goalie prospect. If it's just Primo, it's looking pretty decent, and it's all good teams to stay consistently good. Good teams need prospect coming up, and Bergevin is the kind of guy who looks at that, and I think he really does believe that and understands that. So, all right, so that's it for the Montreal Canadiens prospects. A nice. Short and in-depth look in their prospect pool. We only touched base on the top 2 tiers. They have a few more lower prospects that are projected to be just depth forwards or 4th line grinders, but those are still unbelievably good hockey players.
But those depth players are still important to the team. So.
Well, yeah, they're looking decent. This looking more in depth, they're a lot better than I thought they were.
Yeah. For sure.
And then not following the Canadiens as much. Like I follow the Oilers very, very obviously very much, and I know their prospect pool like the back of my hand. But it was quite interesting to see the Montreal Canadiens there. I was really impressed. So, anyways, that's all for our episode, our first midweek episode this week. Tune in on Friday where we're going to do a little bit of an in-depth look at the Canadian men's national team and their preview for the Costa Rica and Mexico games. Thank you everybody very much for listening, and we'll see you later on this week.
Bye-bye.